Welcome back. Today we're making this candy corn inspired cake. So we're starting off with the cake batter. I'm using my go-to vanilla cake recipe and I'm dividing it evenly between 3 bowls. I'm weighing each of my bowls on a digital scale just to make sure they have the same amount of batter. And once I was confident that my batter was evenly split, I colored my cake batter. So I used some gel food coloring to make one bowl orange and my second bowl yellow. We're going to end up leaving our third bowl uncolored because this is a candy corn cake and those are the 3 colors that we need. So I'm adding a pre-cut parchment round to my cake pan and I'm spraying it with a bit of nonstick cooking spray before I add my batter. After the pan is filled, I like to bang my pans on the counter just to help get out any air bubbles that might be trapped in the batter so that our cake layers come out nice and smooth. Once all of my cake batter was in the pans, I popped them into my 350-degree preheated oven. While my cake layers were baking, I worked on my buttercream. I took about 1.5 cups of buttercream in a bowl and colored it yellow with gel food coloring, and then did the same thing with some orange food coloring. Once my cake layers were fully baked and cooled, I used a serrated knife to level off the tops. This step isn't 100% necessary, but leveling your cake layers makes it so much easier to stack and assemble your cake. So once the top was off, I just grazed my knife across the cake layer one more time to get rid of any slightly uneven parts. So once all of my cake layers were trimmed, it was time to start assembling our cake. So I'm building my cake on a 10-inch greaseproof cake board, but I'm also going to put a smaller cake board that is the exact same size as my cake layers between the cake board and the cake layer. This step is important because we're going to be rolling our cake in sprinkles later, and you need to be able to lift the cake up with your hands, and that allows you to do so. So I'm stacking my cake layers with a very generous layer of marshmallow buttercream here. Forgot to mention that earlier. The flavor that is most similar to candy corn is marshmallow. That's what their flavoring is. So I added some marshmallow fluff to my classic American buttercream to create the flavoring of this frosting. Next, I'm using some of that frosting that we colored earlier to pipe stripes along the side of the cake. I'm making the bottom third yellow, the second third orange, and then I'm using just some plain white buttercream on the top. You can see that I'm not piping any additional buttercream on top of the cake more than just the crumb coat because we don't want a lot of frosting there. Once I had smoothed the frosting using my bench scraper, I placed a second small greaseproof cake board on top of the cake, and this is going to allow me to lift the cake. So that's why you don't want a lot of frosting up there, because if you press on it, the frosting is going to push out, and you just don't need it. So I very carefully lifted my cake up, and in a perfect world, you'd already have your sprinkles poured, but unfortunately, since I was filming this, I did not. So I had to reset my cake down, and I smudged the side a bit, but I was able to fix it, so it was okay. So I have a large baking pan here that is 9 by 13 inches, and you really just need a baking pan that is wide enough for the height of your cake, because you're going to have to lift it up and reposition it a couple times to fully cover the sides, so it's just important that the height fits. So I lined up my sprinkles here, my white, orange, and yellow sanding sugar, and I did my best to create nice stripes. And then it was time for the roll. So this is a little bit traumatic because rolling with this fine of sprinkles is super challenging. It's much easier if you're doing rainbow jimmies or non-real rainbow sprinkles. Doing different colors is super hard, especially in stripes. But I did the best that I could and rolled it a couple more times for good measure, which ended up giving me actually a pretty decent line in the end. I then popped off that top and covered the top of the cake with a little bit more white sanding sugar. I put my remaining frosting into piping bags fit with a Wilton 1M, and then I pipe swirls on top of the cake to match the color pattern of a candy corn. I always think that it goes orange, yellow, white, and every time I do anything candy corn related, I always have to double check, which is embarrassing. But now it's time to cut into our cake. It is all complete. You can see that our matching cake layers are totally lined with that frosting on the side of the cake. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please click the like and subscribe button below if you haven't already. And if you want to recreate this recipe, you can always find it on Chelsweets.com. Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully, I'll see you guys again soon.